Now this is buffer time. Respect.
What is buffer time? Is what buffer time?
The answer to the question, what is buffer time this week, my friends, is Macrocosm, a third season episode of Voyager that we're going to dissect a little bit. But before we get into it, let's go around and introduce ourselves. I'm Dustin from Best of Trek, Worst of Trek.
I'm Scott from Opinions No One Cares About. Good health.
I'm Shereese, the Sci-Fi Savage.
I'm Josh from Wind Grace Project, and I think something's coming out of my neck, but
Gotta watch those things.
It's like the stuff you can't unsee. That's the worst of Trek right there. Best of Trek, worst of Trek, that's the worst. Stuff you can't unsee.
Even when you close
That's
your
a good
eyes.
point. So I guess the little bit of news that we have for you going into this is that 5 days ago, Academy wrapped its primary filming. So, you know, in theory, give or take a year, I wouldn't expect to see it till before sometime in 2026. But that's great. We've got a new show to look forward to finally. And yeah, let's get into Voyager's Macrocosm. What do you make of the TAC-TAC's series of gestures accompanying verbal communication?
I think I'd be just like Janeway. We'd have a lot of issues. I do. Hey, Nadia, so good to see you. I do use my hands quite a bit, especially on my YouTube channel, because you can only see above my neck. So like I use my hands so you know that there's more to me than just my neck and head.
Right.
So I feel like me and the TAC-TAC would not do well. I would definitely put my hands on my hips or look to the side or do something to offend them. And all I can say is thank God for Neelix, which is something I've never said before.
Yeah, he is at
First time
kind
for
of his high
everything.
point here.
He is. This is Neelix doing his Neelix thing.
If not for Neelix, Janeway might have to cut a tree with a chainsaw. So
Yep.
who knows? But I feel like it would be very inconvenient for any non-bipedal species, or I guess two-limbed species. Like, how would they communicate with any other life forms besides, I guess, everybody that the progenitors created? But
Which is kind of a lot. They've got a lot of options. And I would argue that's probably true of every organism, right? There's always, in order for two organisms to even communicate, there need to be certain things that are in common. So
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Like, I could understand if that was their form of communication, was just movements, but to also accompany it with the universal translator, unless this is one of those times where the universal translator is just aimed at us, the audience, and we don't know about it, and it's
Probably.
transferring the gestures into vocalization.
that's a really good idea. I think it's TNG's. I'm sorry. I think it's Voyager's version of Darmok from TNG. That's kind of how I see it. It's their version of like, what if there was somebody who used our words, but also we still miscommunicated with them horribly.
did you go over this when Cisco was in charge? Did he have to deal with the TAC-TAC?
My answer to that was that, well, I guess he dealt with the TAC-TAC about the same. He probably messed something up too, but
Who was his Neelix? Neelix?
Yeah, but that he went after all of the viruses on his own with his phaser rifle, and he didn't need the antigen bomb. He just went through deck by deck, and he's like, "Yep, I got this."
He didn't use a baseball bat. That would have been more.
That's a way better thought. I didn't. I was thinking, Shereese.
He's just.
So the follow-up to the question about the TAC-TAC was, is their solution of firebombing infected stations and ships the best way to avoid the spread of the macrophage?
So I'm going to always have thoughts. So if you guys have if you have anything you want to say, feel free to jump in so it doesn't become the Sci-Fi Savage show. But yeah, two things I will say about that. If they, a better option or a parallel option would be to also try to come up with a cure. Two, outside of that, assuming they don't have the technology or they don't have the skill, or in this case, they don't have the doctor who's the best doctor in everywhere, right? They don't have somebody who can just figure out all these things. Fire is a really good option for any kind of pathogen. Unfortunately, the fire has to consume like all the people and things and everything else. However, it is effective. That's like the one thing you know for sure will work. Bleach does not always work. You know, medicines don't always work, but fire, as long as it's hot enough, always works.
Good to know.
So that's why they have flamethrowers on their ships in Discovery.
That's the only reason for this virus. I feel like I need a disclaimer now after saying that. Yeah, fire.
Fire beats plague.
I mean, cure beats it better, like over time, more consistently. But if we're assuming the TAC didn't have that technology, or we're not dedicated to discovering that, like if they were like, we don't really want to find a cure, we would just rather firebomb everything, that will be effective. However, you got to imagine at some point, someone's going to want some vengeance.
Scott, your ticker memo, that's one of your best ticker memos ever, sir.
I do try.
No, I didn't. I mean, I guess it makes sense from all of the like Hollywood productions and video game productions of like beating plague by fire. It's great to hear that that's actually the like real solution should everything go awry.
Yeah, whenever you see the zombie movies and they're like, just blow it up, that would work.
Kill it with
Like,
fire.
yeah,
Okay.
whenever they're like, just trap them on the island and just blow it up, like that would work. Is that ideal? Not really, but it's
In the long
effective.
run, not so much. But in the short
Right.
term, you're going to kill the virus and
You're gonna
everything
kill the
else along
virus.
with it.
Absolutely. So for cocoa butter, my question is, would you try drinking the alcohol first, or are you saying you would like splash it on the macrophage?
I
What's
was
the
wondering where you're going with
plan?
that also.
If you drink it first, then I suppose you're more easily able to be set on fire.
Oh yeah.
Purell and the gel packs. That's pretty funny. But aren't they like neuro gel packs? I don't know if you want Purell with like brainy stuff.
You don't want to inject the bleach straight into the gel packs?
I would say no, but we did see in was it Fractured, where Chakotay's going around injecting who knows what into the gel packs. So injecting gel packs
yeah.
is definitely a thing you could do.
Time energy or whatever it was, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Only
it was
thing-
Chronoton juice.
Chronotons
or
are just
something.
magic. They can do anything and everything that you need them to do for plot purposes.
Except get
When
rid of a
tachyons
macrophage.
aren't.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, so cocoa butter says both. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, that works.
Mhm.
Little for me, little for you. That sounds like a plan. Wouldn't say it's a good plan, but it does sound like a plan.
Cheers.
Fine.
I mean, this could have been an excuse to bring the decon chamber to Voyager, though. I know I haven't thought of that yet, but
Ooh, purple light sexy time rum. Yes. It just one series too soon.
just need a full episode of Tuvok and Neelix stuck in there together for the entire episode.
Stuck in a closet with Vanna White. Is this episode Janeway at her most badass? And if not, what episode is?
What about Year of Hell, when she just like flies the ship into the Crinum ship? I love that scene, and she's just sitting in the bridge, and she's like, "Let's go, time's up." I love that. So I don't know. This might be a close second. I also like the episode in Scientific Method where she flies the ship between the two stars. And she's
Yes.
like, I'm just
yeah.
trying.
Okay.
And the scientist is all like, what are you going to do? And she's like, I'm trying to crush this ship like a tin can. That's what you wanted, right? Like, that was kind of cool too. I don't know. Janeway has a lot of moments.
I mean, yeah, she's out of her right mind in that one, but yeah, okay. That's a really good moment. As far as action figures, I want this action. I want undershirt, phaser rifle
Sweaty
version
Janeway?
of Janeway.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yep.
Can you repose her, or she has to be in that position where she's holding the rifle in front of her?
I mean, I hope she's got the kung fu grip.
And you could trade out the rifle for like the bomb, right? Like the phage destroying antigen bomb.
The antigen bomb.
If you go with Europel, you can also give her the pocket watch. Then you can accessorize.
Oh,
Yes.
I mean, if Morn as a figure comes with the Quarks class, yes,
Does it?
it does. I had that one as a kid.
Oh, that's funny. She was cold
Fair.
in the Tuvix episode. She was Cocoa Butter. But was she like an action figure though? I think it was more just like it was cold. I want to say heartless, but it wasn't heartless. She was just not thinking of Tuvix. She was thinking of Tuvok and Neelix, and maybe more Tuvok than Neelix. But like as far as an action figure goes, I would say she definitely had some action moments. And then with the Borg, I feel like that's more just like super brave and a little crazy.
That is, I like Nadia's thought here. Macrocosm versus Starship Mine. Yeah, this is another Die Hard on a starship moment. I hadn't thought about it as such, but it is.
So you're asking us to pick, Nadia? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Either way, Tim Russ gets a credit.
Well,
Humanoids?
I feel like this
The
was
Mac-
more badass.
yes.
Besides stabbing? Yeah.
Although overall, I think I like Starship Mine just a smidge better.
What do you think, Windgrace?
They've got more jokes in Starship Mine. More, I guess, asides and character stuff. This is mostly, aside from Neelix getting gacked on, or whatever you want to call it. It's mostly Janeway, and then a little bit of the Doctor. But this is the Janeway taking charge and just putting everything to the wall. Where Starship Mine is Jean-Luc kind of playing around a little bit and just getting some people killed in the meantime. But they're both pretty awesome.
I think this is closer to like TNG's Genesis. And as an episode, this is better, but it's not as interesting and over the top as Genesis. So
It's pretty over the top, but we do not have any other crew members that are affected in the way that we did in Genesis. Instead, they're all just passed out, which is not that exciting. Or we see them in flashbacks, which is never as exciting. I would say, yeah, Janeway and Killing Game. Oof, Cocoa Butter, you're getting the deep cuts. We were just talking about that. I would say for sure Starship Mine, like hands down. And I love this episode and I love Voyager and I'm a microbiologist. So anything that has to do with pathogens on screen is always fun to watch. But Starship Mine is so great. Like it's like the perfect episode. We've got Hutch and his really awkward dinner party where they're eating like chocolate covered coffee beans or whatever. And that's hilarious. And we've got the small talk Olympics going on. And at the same time, we've got Picard hitting somebody with a saddle. It's just, that episode is fantastic. And then comparing this to Genesis, it's got that like creepy haunted ship vibe. Genesis again is like one of my favorite episodes of all time, along with Starship Mine. And yeah, I think that episode's way better than this because it's got even less accurate science, but it's more fun to watch because you get to see the crew just so different, you know? And you could see them piece it together versus this where they're just like, oh, what's happening? Oh my gosh, these giant things are attacking us. Tell us what happened, doctor. And he's like, well, here's what happened. Let's fix it. Oh no, we've got attacked. We can't fix it now. You know, it's a little more straightforward in this one. So yeah, I would say TNG wins twice over this episode.
I think you're muted. Or is it just me?
No,
Who's
it's not
muted,
just you. No, me. I think both of personally, I think this is the better episode of television overall, but both of those are more interesting premises from TNG. Starship Mine might be a little bit better than this, actually, but versus Genesis, yeah, I have to put this one in the middle of those other two.
I think you just have more to chew on in the other ones. Yeah. This is more of a, if you want to see Janeway get her Janeway on, this is where you come.
I think it's like Scott said, it is similar to Starship Mine, except for instead of having terrorists who are bad guys, you've got viruses that are kind of like mindless bad guys.
I think this is the origin of finding out that they store all their most dangerous weapons right by the warp core.
Got to store them somewhere.
Always. So giving you a chance to go off more about the scientific method here, Shereese, does the biology of a rapidly growing virus make sense, or is this purely a work of science fiction?
Great question. Viruses do grow extremely quickly. That is accurate. Viruses do grow exponentially, which the doctor says, meaning that instead of, like they double, right? So we get 1 to 2 to 4, etc. So they do grow exponentially. They don't grow in a straight line. That is accurate. But for viruses to get bigger, that is inaccurate. So most living things have kind of like an off switch when they get to a certain size. And that's as big as they get, and they don't get any bigger. Viruses included. Viruses are a certain size, and whenever they replicate or make more, they make more that are about the same size. They might be a tiny bit bigger, tiny bit smaller, but they're still macroscopic. There's nothing that I know of that every time it multiplies, it gets bigger. So I think that was like the crazy thing in this episode, is that the virus goes from a microscopic organism to a macrovirus to a virus that's the size of like a crane or a pelican flying through the ship. Yeah, that is crazy. But the fast replication is absolutely accurate. I think the flu virus, for example, it doubles every 6 hours. And to give you a comparison, a human skin cell takes about 24 hours for that one cell to double. So imagine an entire human body, right? If we doubled it that way, which some organisms do, it would take forever. And viruses are super, super fast. So I would say some things, really, no, just that. That's really the only thing that was accurate in this episode. Everything else is science fiction / garbled science. Like they use some words that are true. Antigen is a real word. Vaccine's a real word. When they said antigen and when they said vaccine, they did it all wrong. Yeah. Yeah, these ticker comments are great. I like the ticker comment that was like, Earl Grey, mother effer. That was funny. I kind of want a t-shirt that says that.
If you could shrink Janeway to the size of an actual virus and she stabbed it with a knife, would that actually kill it?
No.
No. Oh.
No.
There
It
goes my
actually would
simple
not.
idea.
Most viruses have, some viruses have a coating. All viruses have a coating around them. Some of the coatings are made out of proteins, so kind of like your skin, and some of them are made out of lipids, so kind of like grease, right? Yeah. So imagine if you have a virus that's covered in grease and you stab it. It's just going to like go through the grease and come out the grease. It's not going to disrupt it at all. The only way to kill that thing is to disrupt all the grease, is to make it all go away so that the genetic material, the DNA or the RNA, is exposed to the environment, and then that thing would die. So
Guess it'd be like stabbing Yaphet from
the Orville, yeah.
From the Orville. Yeah. Exactly. It'd be like stabbing him. And there's stabbing it. And you wouldn't expect to see it like go and like collapse, right? It would just like
nice.
Yeah.
Magic School watching the virus. Cocoa butter. I love this.
That's actually
Miss Frizzle.
That's actually one of the reasons I became a scientist, is the Magic School Bus and the movie Outbreak. And I was literally just talking about that like 2 days ago. I was like, it's all about the magic school bus. Yeah, so that scene where she like stabs the virus and then it like falls over dead, we're supposed to think she stabbed it in like its heart or brain or something, and a virus has none of those things. And then she like cut the arm off, which was fun.
Just to try and take this one step further and make it clear, like, I mean, obviously you can only tell us about what we already know from how things evolve on Earth, Shereese, but do you think in any universe, in any version of space and the evolution of viruses, that this is possible in any way, shape, or form? I mean, obviously, like, you don't know until you know, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. So if we're talking about Terran viruses and not like alien, supernatural sci-fi things, I think having something that's super contagious, absolutely true. Having something that's spread through the air, absolutely true. Having something that's spread through touch or through things that we eat or drink, absolutely true. Having viruses grow really, really quickly, absolutely true. Viruses, so they use an antigen as a vaccine to cure the virus. So none of that makes sense, right? The antigen would be on the virus. An antigen is something your body reacts to. So do antigens exist? Yes. Do vaccines exist? Yes. Vaccines would be used to prevent the infection. Nothing you could do about it once once you're infected, the vaccine is not going to be helpful at all. So I think there are a lot of pieces in here that are real things, but could this scenario ever happen? In my mind, absolutely not. And I feel like they might have benefited from talking to an expert a little bit more in the script writing process. But it's a really fun episode.
I mean, considering Voyager's version of talking to an expert was still talking to the same expert Trek had always had about Native American stuff to make high water about Cote.
Yeah.
Had to go there.
Something tells me they may not have picked the best expert.
This is before Yelp. Maybe that's why.
Maybe they should have asked Gene Roddenberry's lawyer like the first couple seasons of TNG.
Oh, Leonard Maislish. Yeah, that dude was. We could do a whole episode just on like that dude and like how weird he was.
Oh, there's an idea going forward.
Oh, Nadia didn't get the magic school bus. Oh, that's really sad.
Okay, interesting. Like before I had ever seen the TV show, I had read a bunch of the books as a kid.
Oh,
true.
I see a lot of comments in here about shows, and nobody mentioned Osmosis Jones. So that's interesting, though, right?
I've never seen it. I know it. But...
Come on. It's
Osmosis Jones.
Remarkably relevant. I mean, Chris Rock plays a white blood cell inside Bill Murray's body who's trying to find and take down a virus that's going to kill him.
And it does talk about like the immune response and stuff. They probably had an expert helping them develop that show, that movie.
It's too busy for Voyager then.
But, you know, if they had an expert, they would have caught all these loopholes and the episode wouldn't have been nearly as fun. Like, there's just something about Janeway running around with a phaser rifle and, like, stabbing a virus in the heart, eye, throat, brain area.
Whatever it was.
Whatever that was. And then tricking them into the holodeck and then having all the holographic people, like, run around and scream and get infected. Like, that was fun to watch.
Do you think their quarantine procedures would normally have worked, or were they too lax?
They didn't stand a chance on this ship because of the way this virus just moved so quickly, and because it was airborne and it flew around like a fly or like a mosquito, which is crazy. They never stood a chance. They trying to quarantine. That was a good idea, but they were never going to be successful with that. I did see Inner Space. You never seen Inner Space? That's that's a magic school bus with like, it's a live action magic school bus. It's great. It's great. It's got Martin Short. It's great. You should watch that after this.
Okay.
It's a comedy. It's silly and ridiculous.
Oh, I think Picardo might be in that.
Oh, I think you might be right. You might be right.
You've just broken the time-space continuum.
So following up on things about the virus, how does the CGI of the virus compare to other CGI from the 90s?
In Star
Not the
Trek or
90s,
just
right?
in general?
Yeah, in general.
It's better than the Langoliers.
That's
That's
not
terrifying.
hard. I actually
terrifying.
like the story of the Langoliers, and yeah, the
Oh,
Langoliers
the story's
CGI is so garbage. It hurts.
The Langoliers gave me nightmares. What were you gonna say, Scott? Your thoughts?
Like I can't
You went-
speak to the 90s, but like I was watching this episode today and it didn't look terrible. So it's more or less held up for me. I mean, obviously I don't believe there's an actual virus floating around, but it didn't look bad. Yeah, like the Langoliers or what else? I don't know. Lawnmower Man, maybe?
I would wonder what this would look like without like a high def screen and all of that. I feel like it might look better. I think it was fine. Like if this was my first time seeing it, I'd probably be like, wow, that looks really bad. But looking back on it with eyes now, I think it was fine. To me, this is as good as the Species 8472. Like this is fine. This is all I needed is just a little bit of something moving around and flying. Yep, it's fine.
It's somewhere in between the Langoliers, and 8472 is pretty good for 90s television budget CGI.
Yeah.
Just for fun, I've actually got, just because I had put
Oh,
the
no.
Langoliers. Yeah, there they are. Oh my god, this is so bad.
I'm so
So
scared.
bad it hurts.
Run, Dalky!
I forgot it looked like this. I remember it being really
So
scary.
bad.
It's the teeth. Why are they just staring? Why aren't they running?
I think that's enough of that.
Why aren't they
Well,
running?
the plane was like their way out, I think.
But why are they standing there watching everything be eaten? What is wrong with these people? This is another thing that makes it a scary movie. That right there. We're all like, oh, how interesting.
I mean, that's a good. I kind of do want to go back and watch this on like a 16-inch CRT TV that only like has half the signal coming in.
Oh,
Yeah, I
no.
think the first time I saw this on cable on a 13-inch CRT when I was, like 14.
It probably looked amazing.
Yeah, no reason not to.
It's better than the Langoliers, as we just saw.
Oh, man.
That's not hard for coming from almost the same year, too.
I love Nadia saying, I have no idea what this is. It's a really good story. It's a really good story. And I feel like it's replicated in Prodigy season 2 much better. But
Oh,
that's also
yeah.
animated, so
We also get a tank top Janeway scene in that show, so go check it out.
Oh, yeah.
Prodigy season 2 might be the best season of New Trek that we've had.
yeah, season 2 was solid. Like
It really
I had a
is.
lot of complaint in season 1 just because I'm a former
Yeah,
teacher,
it's
so
okay.
so angsty kids just sometimes I can't do it. But season 2 is really solid.
I agree.
I saw
Season
it.
1's like, it's mediocre. It's a kid's, just a generic kid show. But season 2 is just a good episode of Star Trek, even though it's a kid show.
And it did the impossible, improve on some of Picard, as far as my feelings about it.
Well, it connected to Picard. I thought that was an interesting choice.
I wouldn't call Langoliers Tremors because that scene that I just showed you with the Langoliers is only in the movie for about 2 minutes of about a 6-hour miniseries. So,
Oh, gosh.
That was the big
rest
reveal
of
of
it-
the monster. That right
Yeah.
there. That was like the
it's
oh no.
too long. It's a cool premise. I really like the story, but it's much too long for what it is. And the CGI is it's so dated. And just for a fun aside, I live about 2 miles from the Bangor airport that's supposedly part of. Even though I can't remember where they filmed it. It was filmed at some abandoned airfield somewhere.
Of course it is.
Well, because of all the damage from the Langoliers.
Clearly, it was a cover-up. Yes.
I mean, see, you can do that on an active airport, is what I'm saying.
One of the,
yeah.
the thing that they tell you though about the Bangor airport, about it being like they have to go there rather than Boston because it's like the biggest runway on that part of the East Coast, which is true because it's an active military and civilian runway. So it's huge for like the big military planes. Anyway, go ahead, Shereese.
No, I was just reading the chat, and I have not read the novel, but I've read a lot of Stephen King. So I would say, yep, I've read a lot of Stephen King. I would say, if you like not sleeping, maybe give it a read. But I don't think you need to watch it though. It's like, yeah, I don't think you need to watch it.
They took one of his short stories, something that was like, a couple dozen pages, and turned it into a 6-hour miniseries. At least it had Dean Stockwell, so that's something.
Stephen King was the king of miniseries. He really was. Like, book after book after book became a 6-part miniseries.
Slightly off topic, Lou. Is that a Stephen King one, or is that like specifically a Richard Bachman story?
The Langoliers.
I can't remember if that was him or his pseudonym.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
The Langoliers is definitely.
I don't know.
It was a Stephen King short story.
Also in a Stephen King short story, we get two people in Stand By Me, Wesley Crusher and Jack Quaid. Not Jack Quaid. Ransom, what's his name?
Jerry O'Connell.
Jerry O'Connell, yes.
And yes, Nadia, we are so much closer to the French here in Maine than we are to the rest of America. It's not funny. It's the only state to border more Canadian provinces than states. So in the grand scheme of the episode, we're actually talking about what would you do if you were Janeway and Neelix in this situation?
Part of me is like, leave. Same thing I would do in Genesis. I'd be like, nah, I'm good. As soon as I saw that snake skin with the comm badge and a big scratch in the hole, I'd be like, I'm good. I'm good. It's time to like get back in that shuttle, call Starfleet. Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
But yeah. So if I was Neelix, I'd be like, all right, Captain, this looks like you've got it. I'm going to be on my shuttle, going to get some help. But if you're Janeway, I guess you have no choice but to stay and fight for the ship. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. I would have no interest in solving this mystery.
Let's not forget Neelix has his own ship they always forget about. But was there a reason they couldn't go directly to sick bay like at the start? I can't remember.
They tried to. All the power was out, and like turbo lifts weren't working, and all of that.
Couldn't they have just beamed from the shuttle to sick bay or something?
There's always stuff going on.
I guess they could have from Voyager shuttles, though. I mean, you see by the time you get to Discovery, for some reason, that all shuttles have a transporter because.
Why wouldn't they?
But yeah.
Sure, they're shuttles, but why couldn't they also have transporters? But no, they had already like left the shuttle, and they were investigating the mystery. Right, they couldn't find anybody, and on their readings, they were reading erratic bioelectric signatures. So they were trying to figure out, is anybody on the ship? Where are the people on the ship? Why isn't anybody answering? Let's get to the bridge so we can find out what's going on. And then that's why. So they didn't say,
when the power's out, you go one of two places: bridge or engineering.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I think that's why, because they were just like, what's going on? And at no point were they like, let's backtrack and then transport ourselves. You know what I mean? They were just kind of like figuring out as they went, oh, shoot, the turbo lifts are down. Oh, no, the doors won't open. Oh, that's weird. What's that buzzing sound? That's the point where it's like, all right. And good night, everybody.
All over yourself there, Neelix. I do like the continuity where he corrects her to my lung. I did enjoy that.
I forgot that. What about you guys? What would you guys do? I would leave. What would you guys do?
Yeah, what they did, either head for bridge or engineering, whichever was closer. Probably engineering, I guess.
Probably would have wound up infected.
I don't know. I guess
Which
I was
they also
thinking
did.
outside of being in the circumstance. I always think like, Well, the doctor is probably not affected by anything, but they probably don't know that. So good point.
He might not be loaded into his mobile emitter.
Yeah, he only just got it like the previous episode, I think, because they weren't even calling it the mobile emitter yet. They called it.
Yeah, one thing this episode definitely has going for it is that it's the doctor's first away mission. Baby's first away mission.
Oh yeah, we get to watch his.
I
his
forget how
TV
early
show
in the
on
series
Wii.
that was.
Are you? The chat is just like cracking me up. What you guys would do? I admire that the three of you would like go to fight the good fight.
I mean, if you're Janeway, you have to, but Neelix had just gotten buttered up by being almost promoted to ambassador, so he was probably riding pretty high.
Plus, he has
feeling
nowhere
like
to
he could
go.
do no wrong. True. Well, he would probably want to rescue Cass at this point too.
Did we lose Scott?
Where did I go?
There we go.
You went into the time quantum hole, but you're back. Yeah. We're all back. Chronotons.
Just light it on fire.
I love
Or go to
that.
the holodeck with a Tommy gun.
I love that Nadia's like, I would just Janeway Alpha Pie it, just Alpha Destruct, just auto destruct everything. Cocoa Butter's up here punching stuff in the face, using violence in lieu of scientific knowledge. Isn't that always the way, Cocoa Butter?
Well, she made a science bomb. So
Sap.
a giant. I'd go get a giant spray can and XXX on it, just on the eye parts, right? Because that's what kills them in the cartoons. Did they try phasering them? Yeah, at some point, because Janeway blasts one away inside of the in the kitchen in the galley. So yeah, that worked. But the thing was that they were being overwhelmed by like millions of them. So although we know phasers can do wide beam, so they could just be like boop boop boop, all of you. But whatever. Let's say it's like high stress environment and not thinking straight and you're only shooting one at a time. They were just being overwhelmed by these giant infrared seeking macrophage.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget, they didn't get all of them. One made it all the way to Lord X.
How did it get there? I need to rewatch.
Hiding. I don't know.
You're welcome, Robert.
Did
It's also my greatest source of knowledge. That in school.
Did they give a high end? Like, is this as big as the viruses we're going to get, or would they have kept getting bigger?
According to this episode's biology, they would have kept getting bigger, and ultimately they would have been as big as a room. Because they couldn't get as big as the ship because they would be constrained by the size of the room.
The doctor says that there's going to be thousands of them within another 24 hours. So I guess we'd assume that they've gotten as big as they're going to get.
But where are they coming from at this point? They're not coming out at Nex anymore.
I think they are.
Yeah,
they're all starting small and growing,
right? Because if everybody
growing.
has one, a couple are coming out of each person, and then it becomes exponential.
But they're coming out continuously, even though in the episode we see like one or two fly out, which is disgusting. Could we just never do anything with Nex again, please, Star Trek? But in reality, that one virus can make thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of viruses. So that one is spreading to everything. They're all starting small and they're all getting bigger.
Okay. That's a good ticker.
I'm sorry, I had to, okay? These things come to me and they have to be put down.
Ooh, Cocoa Butter says bug zappers. That probably would have worked.
Ooh. That was kind of
similar with the Force. If there's less than thousands already, I figure if it was Cisco, he just would have gone on a hunting trip. It's hunting season.
How many minutes of this episode would we have cut off if Seven were here, and she would have just nanoprobed something in like 2 minutes.
Or she would have assimilated all the macrophage.
So combining two of our questions here, what's with the buzzing and collecting bodies? And they hunt by like heat and sound and movement, all of them?
Yeah, how do actual viruses function? Like, do they just look for some like proteins or something?
Yeah,
Fair
that's a great question. And that was probably the most egregious part of this episode that I love is the behavior of these viruses, because they're doing some big biological behaviors that like mammals might do or insects might do, but that viruses would never do. So the way a virus works is that it connects to a protein on the outside of a cell. And it has to be a very specific protein. And when it finds it, it connects, it goes into the cell, and then it uses the cell's machinery to make a bunch of copies. Then those copies come out of the cell and go and infect all the other cells. So when you have an infection in your respiratory system, for example, that's why like your throat will get all scratchy, because it's like that, those few throat cells that were infected, that infection is now spreading. And as it starts destroying more and more and more cells in your throat, you can start to feel it at a certain point. So that's how a virus would spread. And that's also why viruses cannot jump between different species, because the proteins are so specific. So that's why your dog can get sick, but you don't get sick from your dog. Or you can't make your dog sick because you're a different species with different proteins. So the viruses can't mix. Same thing is actually true with plants and animals. Like if something infects a rose, it can't also infect a tulip, right? Like there are some viruses that are just super specific to what they infect. Now there are a few, like the flu, which because of its biology can cross species from time to time.
So like
but
the
all
bird
of this
flu that we're currently seeing in the US, it's going between a bunch of different species.
Yes, like the bird flu or the swine flu or the et cetera flu, because the way the flu works is it actually gets a combination of RNA inside of it. Like it gets a combination of genetic material every time it makes a new virus. So it mutates more than the average virus is what I'm saying. So that one's unique, but most viruses don't have that kind of range. That's how it would spread. Some of them can spread, and the way they spread also is very specific. So some can spread through only through your respiratory system. So sneezing, coughing, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Some can only spread through what you're eating or drinking. Some can only spread through fluids, like through sex or something like that. Some can spread through touching. Some can spread through inanimate objects like doorknobs, blankets, stuff like that. But each virus is different. So if it's something that's only spread by coughing, it's not also spread by drinking or by touching a blanket, right? It's very specific. So in this case, with a virus, just stabbing people in the neck and injecting them with more virus, yeah, that's not a thing. Viruses don't do that. They don't do a lot of stabbing as a general rule. There is a bacterial virus that is where this virus gets its name actually, which is called a phage, a T4 phage. And the word phage this is another thing that kind of bugs me. Phage is bacterial viruses. If we're talking about anything else, we would never use the word phage, but whatever. So the T4 phage does inject into bacterial cells. And I think that's where they got this idea from, where they're like, oh, we could just make a virus that just injects things. So that is a thing that could happen. But animal viruses, like the flu, the cold, all that stuff, they don't do a lot of stabbing. If that makes you feel better. Oh yeah. So
in no way.
In no way. And then the other thing about the collecting people. Okay, so this is really interesting. So collecting people into one spot, that's also not a thing. However, there are some viruses that do affect behavior. There are some
or something
like rabies, and I probably shouldn't even say viruses. I should say pathogens, because rabies is something that affects people's behavior, right? It makes them afraid of water. It makes them agitated. It actually affects how they act. There is a infectious protein that causes mad cow disease, and that also affects people's personalities and their behaviors because of the way that it damages the brain. So there are things that do that. There's also this parasite called toxoplasma that's found in cat poop, which is why pregnant women they're always told not to have cats because of this particular parasite. But what it does is when it infects mice, it affects their brain to make them want to be around cats. So a mouse, normally when it smells cat smells, it runs away and it hides. But if the mouse is infected with this parasite, it runs towards the cat smell. and then it's eaten, and then the cat's infected, and the cycle starts over. It's wild. So there are some things that can affect behavior. Extremely rare, but it does happen. So in this case, where everybody's like, technically they're all quarantined, so that's why they're in the same spot. But as far as something infectious that could make somebody do something, that is a thing that could potentially exist. Now, the buzzing and the flying, like, that's not a thing. My question is, how do these macrophages have any propulsion whatsoever? Like, they don't have wings. How are they flying through the ship? I don't know. Chronotons.
That's a good point, because I remember, like, during the COVID-19 pandemic, one of the big denier claims is, oh, well, they can go right through the size of hole in your mask, so the mask isn't valid, until you realize that they can only move on water molecules, which are much bigger than the size of the holes in the mask. So it kind of doesn't matter. So in in our bigger realm that we see, what are they riding on? Because it's not a water molecule. And
it's not wind, right? It's not like the AC currents. They are actively moving towards infrared light for some reason. And then they're aggressively attacking it. And then did you notice when they're in the holodeck and they've like incapacitated all of the holographic people, they just stop attacking. They're just like, oh, well, how would they know that? How would they know? Exactly. How would they? Because either they're attacking based off of infrared light, which is basically they're saying body heat. Either they're attacking off of body heat, which female mosquitoes actually do, or they are attacking off of movement, which like spiders do, snakes do, but what's going on here? They stop attacking as soon as everybody passes out. Why would they? They're still hot. They still have body heat. They could just keep attacking all day long. And if they're attacking things that are hot, why aren't they all attacking the warp core?
If it's not gravitons, cocoa butter, it's chronotons, because chronotons solve all plot problems in Star Trek. So to throw this out here before we finish up our last couple of questions, we actually don't have a plan for what we're going to do for shows going forward here in the weeks. One thing is that we might do 13 weeks of the 13 movies of Star Trek minus Section 31, since we've already done that. So let us know if there's a topic or a show that you think we should really do that we haven't done. I just wanted to throw that out there before we move on to the next of just a few things. Do the macroviruses have the horror movie fear effect that the script was clearly going for?
In that position, I'd be scared. I'd be scared. Like when it was trying to stab Janeway in the face, I'd be scared. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'm scared of the goo at the beginning, before we really knew what was going on, because it was like burning through everything, and then Neelix got gooed, and then they kind of just transitioned away from the goo and just became stabbing.
Yeah, there were some times the way like some shots were set up that made it seem like it was going for a horror movie feel, but not entirely. So I admit I was a little freaked by bugs come or whatever they're supposed to be flying out of a person's neck.
Yeah, I don't like that. That was a good choice if they wanted to be scary, I guess, the neck thing.
So my friend had this question about Stephen King movies. Is it scary or is it gross? Actually, she didn't have this question. I said Stephen King is scary, and she said Stephen King is gross. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then we went to see a movie, and she was right. It was just gross. Like everything that was scary was just gross and gory and awful.
It depends on the movie and the concept, for sure.
Well, this particular movie that we went to see, where I was like, no, it's a scary movie, because they're always pitched as scary movies. It was just like the whatever the monster was or whatever was just like eviscerating people. It was just gross. So I guess my question for you is gross the same as scary in this episode? Like, is that what makes it scary? The neck thing, is that part of what makes it scary? Because certainly, when she's in the bridge and she like hears a buzzing and she like hits her neck, like that's kind of creepy. But is the neck thing what makes this a horror?
I think the transubstantiation from like microscopic to macroscopic is the key of what makes it scary. And even then, it's only like, it's pretty mildly, like we were talking about, the Langoliers kind of scary.
Yes, I agree.
Yes,
Not-
but The Shining also has, a naked old dead woman in a bathtub, and that becomes gross.
But that's both gross and scary. And it's not scary because it's gross. It just happens to be both. I
That's
mean,
why
there's
I
stuff
don't
in
have
that movie
kids.
like the twin girls. They're cute and scary at the same time. It doesn't have to be gross and scary, but sometimes those two things do overlap.
Yeah. But along the lines of like Stephen King, you want Stephen King that's scary, gross, and coincidentally about a virus? Read The Stand. Like, not necessarily watch it because they did that whole miniseries thing with it, and nah.
It's very long.
But, like,
The book is also quite long.
Yeah, it is. That's equally part scary and gross because it's a pretty accurate. Seems like a pretty accurate description of someone dying of a flu virus.
Scary needs an element of mystery and suspense.
Okay.
I agree, and I think this episode has that. I think it's mysterious. I think it's suspenseful. I think there's a lot of big questions going on. I think the whole ghost ship is creepy. I think Neelix and Janeway kind of splitting up, and then Janeway and the Doctor splitting up. All of that is also creepy. I think this is I think this is a good scary episode. I still think Genesis is scarier.
Yes.
But I think they hit the nail on the head with like scary episodes. Yes, I would say this is a scary episode, especially for Star Trek, especially for Voyager, because how many of those are there? Not very many.
The Haunting of Deck 12. There's a couple. There's at least 3. That Night and Void. I can't remember which one's the scarier there.
I think.
Well, it depends. If you feel trapped, being trapped in a space with a bunch of irrational people is terrifying, then it's definitely Void. It's definitely Void. If you're afraid of like Borg, then yeah, it's Night. Wait, hold on a second. Cocoa Butter says gross is terrifying. That's why I don't have kids, which is pretty funny.
Okay.
Yes,
That's
Voyager
fair.
had a scary
when
story.
it comes to like Stephen King movies and kids, the movie, one of my favorites is the original Pet Cemetery. But since I've had kids, it's a lot harder to watch. Let's put it that way. I have a very different reaction now than when I watched it the first couple of times when I was like in my teens and early 20s.
The book is also terrifying. I saw a little bit of the new one and I was like, eh. But but that's like clearly it's not my jam. But yeah, the book is also quite terrifying. There's a little swap with the kids and who all dies or whatever, but I mean it's the kind of thing that you like, yeah, again, if you love sleeping, like maybe don't read that one.
I mean, I do like that we got Tasha Yar as the mom in the movie.
See, it all connects. We're not going off topic.
Yeah, TNG might have some scarier ones or more episodes that are scary, I should say.
Robbie, I'll be honest, I don't know who Fred Gwynn is, sir.
Herman Munster. And he was
Okay.
I forget which guy in Pet Cemetery.
Oh, he was in Pet Cemetery. He was
okay.
the neighbor.
Don't go down that road. Okay, I got it.
Yes.
Ground on top.
He's totally endearing.
That's proper knowing that.
So do you find like the telepathic pitcher plant episode scary, or is that more just like an adventure?
I mean, I can see how it can go in this the vein of scary. For me, this one's actually a little bit scarier.
Yeah, I would also like if I was making a list of scariest episodes, which I think I did, I would put the pitcher plant one in there because there's just not that many scary episodes to choose from. But if I'm going straight up horror, like pitcher plant's not horror. You know, it's maybe more of that mystery and suspense with a little bit of action. But it kind of reminds me of that episode 1 where like, which I think they did the same exact thing in Enterprise. They probably did the same thing in TOS. But the episode where 7 of 9 is like the only one awake and everyone else is asleep, and that's supposed to be really scary. Like that's not scary at all, but it's supposed to be scary. It more to me is just very annoying. So I don't know. I guess there's a range of scary.
I don't know. We're talking about a fart cloud. Are we talking about the cloud from TOS? It smells like honey and Kirk gets his white whale moment. Is that what we're talking about? Because I have no idea otherwise.
Or like the cloud from early Voyager where it's a nebula that's actually alive.
Oh, that one.
But that wasn't scary.
No, it wasn't.
Unless they're talking
Yeah,
about
there
the
isn't
The
that.
cloud
Even,
from
even
Voyager,
when
they
was a
accidentally
cloud,
captured it.
for sure.
Oh, she's talking about Haunting
Yeah.
of Deck 12.
Yes,
Oh,
The
yeah,
nebula
that one.
monster from Haunting of Deck
Yep.
12. Yeah, it was I think that episode was it was supposed to be a campfire ghost story. So yes, that was supposed to be a scary episode, like a scary episode, but it was supposed to be very like quirky and kind of, because they had some jump scares and some relaxing moments. It wasn't supposed to be like this. This is like ghost story. This is like a haunted ship story where it's supposed to be more dark, apocalyptic. And then you got the tac trying to firebomb them from space. Add a little flavor to it.
gotta do it.
It was framed as a horror story. Yeah, there's coffee in that nebula. Yeah, so they're all scary. Yes, I would say there's different there's like a spectrum of scariness.
So pulling it to the other side of this, our last question was, is this the best use of the tiki bar scene from the holodeck?
In my opinion, yes.
It's either this or that time that they tried to kill B'Elanna and a couple of other people when I think it was when the doctor was doing Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Oh yeah. Is that
Oh,
Dark
right.
Age or something?
Darkling.
Darkling.
Yeah, that one.
Darkling, yep. I would say
Yes, this is absolutely the best use of this set. 1000%. Finally, we get these people doing something other than serving drinks.
I mean,
and
they were
tanning.
always doing something. It was just done off screen.
I'm just glad that they moved here from Sandrine's because I really hated that set.
Oh, yeah.
So this is great.
They
This
tried
is
to get a
big
holodeck
step
thing
up.
for a while, and then they made Fairhaven.
Right? They were just really on that, we are going to figure a way to make this holodeck thing work. And then they did Killing Game where you're like, oh, the dangers of the holodeck.
Yep.
What was that
Yeah,
episode?
Meridia.
I think that's like a couple
Meridia?
episodes
Oh,
after
yeah.
this.
Yeah, that one wasn't supposed to be scary. It's supposed to be a love story. But yeah,
That one's
she was
just
it was
not very
creepy.
good the whole way around.
It was very Fatal Attraction. Mm-hmm.
Kim going way too far and wants to get rid of his emotions because he's in love with a hologram. Good job.
And the
Barry.
hologram's in love with Tuvok.
Yeah, but then it's twist, not a hologram.
Oh,
Who's
Harry
also
Kim.
in love with Tuvok?
Ensign Harry Kim. He can't have a holodeck girlfriend. But Janeway, Captain, she can have holodeck boyfriend. Computer, delete the goddamn wife.
So you can't delete Tuvok.
Kim doesn't have the authority to delete the wife.
So our final question before we get to the out of 10. Oh, that was our final question. Sorry. Does
Was
anybody
nothing.
have anything else they would like to get into before we rank this thing?
No, I'm good. This was fun. Robert says that my favorite part of the Killing Game was when they played the game that involved killing. I wonder, Robert, have
Oh,
you seen
Robbie.
those two episodes? Because
Oh,
they're
Robbie.
not great when it comes
Robbie,
to killing.
boy.
They're pretty bad for killing. We don't love that for them.
It's supposed to be 3 episodes, so you're lucky you
Oh,
only got 2.
gosh.
That's why the
3
Chakotay
episodes.
and Paris plot was so shoehorned in. They were supposed to have a whole separate thing going on.
All right. let's answer
Nadia, I'm
Nadia's
so glad
question.
you asked this question because I was thinking the same exact thing. Oh, it'd be Kim 1,000 million times over.
Mhm.
Why is this even a competition?
Because
I don't know,
I'm
what do you
picking
guys think?
Tuvok.
Why?
Well, is Tuvok
He's more
free of-
stable.
Because we saw what happened when he was trapped with
More
Tank Girl for a year. He wouldn't let go of his
Yeah.
wife. So
Harry Kim
He's
is
a-
the
he's a
Geordie
true
LaForge.
gentleman.
Harry needs a win.
Harry's not quite the Geordie LaForge.
No, he's worse. He had way more.
He
had
has
way
less
more
action than
failed
Geordie.
relationships.
Are you sure?
Well, Geordie
It's
didn't
not
get a
necessarily
space
true.
STD.
Yeah. Geordie
Cocoa
just
butter.
never really
I
got
don't have an
anything.
exact count, but I mean,
Cocoa butter says Tuvok,
Yeah, I'm going Tuvok.
and Nadia says, "Well, I don't know. Nadia, did you pick one?
I'd
Oh,
probably
Kim.
go
Okay,
Tuvok.
Kim.
She's going Kim.
Why are you guys picking Tuvok? I'm so interested." Robert says Tuvok. That thing cooks. Oh, you mean
Because
Tuvix? Tuvix.
over the long term, he's more predictable.
Then Harry Kim.
Yes. Harry
Okay.
Kim does change based on whim. Like, look at Harry Kim between like the shoot and really he's just kind of different episode to episode. He's whatever the plot needs to serve, and his character doesn't really stick to anything solid, to be honest, other than being almost amazing but just underperforming enough to not care about.
That's not Harry Kim's fault. I think he's a sweet, wonderful human being, and he's interesting. And I think Tuvok is boring, stable, smart, efficient, effective at his job, passionless, and boring. Those are my opinions. Windgrace, you also picked Tuvok?
I just think Tuvok for the long term would be a bit better than the Harry Kim situation. Harry Kim can't even keep straight which instrument he plays from episode to episode. At least Tuvok's
We
over
actually-
here playing Kel-toe.
we actually used to have somebody who was on these streams who's a music teacher who said it's not uncommon for clarinet players to switch to playing the saxophone.
It makes sense. They're two reed-driven instruments, so there's a lot of the same breath techniques and stuff.
I mean, he's
They're
good with his
also like-
lips. What's the problem? I'm not seeing a downside here. You just won me over even more for Harry Kim.
Harry
So-
Kim would be fun for the
Tuvok's
first
a touch
month,
telepath.
but then it would get annoying, I think, after
That's
about a
interesting.
month.
Do you want to
You
date
can
a
only play
telepath?
so much alto.
Wait, Windgrace, do you want to date a telepath? Do you
A touch
really?
telepath, not like a betazoid,
Yeah, exactly.
but like a Vulcan telepath I could handle. Yeah.
My mind to your mind. The hell you will.
That right there. Want to know what I'm thinking? Ask me. My mind to my own mind. I don't know. That seems no. Hold on. So I just want to address this. What did Cocoa Butter say? Tim Russ. How can you turn down Tim Russ? Tim Russ is a beautiful man, but we're not talking about Tim Russ. We're talking about Tuvok, which is a totally different person, totally different personality.
What if you just pop him in the transporter with an orchid and just see what happens?
Just Thafo with Tim Russ.
Tuvok would only be interesting as a significant other every 7 years. Just saying.
I mean, that's a good point. That's a good point. But we do know from Strange New Worlds that they do it more than every 7 years. It just
Right.
has to be done every 7 years.
You just get the most passion, just got out of prison experience every 7 years. Okay, good to know. That is something I did not consider in my calculations.
But with enough chronotons, I mean, it can be every day.
Every day could be 7 years.
Yeah.
And with
Cocoa Butter
that-
says I have a cat named Tuvok, but I don't have a cat named Harry Kim. Well, that solves that right there. Mic dropped. Sorry, go ahead, Dustin.
No, I was just with that. I think it's time to like wrap this thing up. We're just over an hour. Let's give Macrocosm an out of 10. Oh, I mean, I'm flirting somewhere within a half point of a 5 either way here. No, maybe it is just a 5. Straight down the middle. Like, it's really not bad. It's not a great episode either. It just kind of it does its part.
Well, I don't know if this is, and maybe you guys in the chat can help remind me. This is a very memorable episode to me, but is this a very memorable episode in general for Voyager, or is it just one that kind of stuck with me? And because it's one that I tend to always remember, I'd probably have to give it more than like a middle of the road. So probably around a 6. Did everything it was trying to do, maybe a little scientifically wonky, but you know, when
Maybe
is Star Trek
a micro
ever...
or a macro? Yeah, size of wonky.
But yeah, I think it does have some memorable moments. And if it is the first time, this is before Year of Hell, right? So it would be the first time she was tank Janeway. Yes, tank top Janeway, I think.
And yeah, Coco, actually, you've just sold me on it. I want to give it 5.5 now, just for Kung Fu grip action fucking Janeway. 5.5.
Yeah. And Marge, is bringing out the whole rock in the tank top as well. Yeah, I agree with Wingrace. This episode is very memorable for me, but also microbiologist. So I'm like, oh my gosh, a giant virus. So this is super memorable for me. But is it like one of like my favorite Voyager episodes? Like I mentioned, Scientific Method or Year of Hell or something where you're like, ooh, like this is good. I probably couldn't say that. So yeah, I will give it a 6.
I'm just running around updating everybody. Yeah, probably a 6 overall. It is a decent enough episode, but like we've been comparing it to not only episodes of like other episodes of Trek, episodes of TNG, Stephen King, stuff that's considerably better, and
PBS kid shows.
Yeah.
Magic School Bus, Osmosis Jones.
It does its part to match up to them, but not entirely. So yeah, let's go with a 6.
Yeah, I think 6.07 is very generous, honestly, here as the average. Well, what just?
I saw that. Did you do that? Who just did that average so fast?
Oh, he did the average. I'm just putting the stuff.
Okay, I was like, we were all talking, and suddenly the average popped up.
Popped up and then it disappeared for some reason. Anyway, 6.07.
Damn,
it was the freaking chronotons. Okay, so I guess I'm making the executive decision next week, and for the next 13 weeks, we're going to talk about some movies. So,
in order,
when we're going to come back to you with the motionless picture next week. It'll be great, I think. Any final thoughts on Macrocosm before we get out of here?
Just if you're going to be watching Voyager in order, look out for that explosion in the next episode because they reuse it.
Good to know.
Nice.
That's a deep cut. I wouldn't have caught that.
We're going to find Voyager.
All right, guys. Well, it's been a lot of fun, especially for Shereese. We don't get you every week, so I was very happy to have you, a microbiologist, talking about macroviruses. And as always, Star Trek.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I love chatting with you guys. You guys are so much fun. And thank you to everybody who's in the chat and who's watching on the replay. You guys are hilarious and made this so much fun.
I think you just thanked everybody else. I was going to anyway.
Sorry. What were you going to say, Dustin?
Well, I guess until we see you again, live long